Once the data logger has been configured, you can come to the dashboard and see the options that have been generated on the dashboard based on how it was configured. So in our application, we added a water level sensor, we added a rain gauge, and we had it log the internal battery, and we set up goes. So in this case here, we also have it set up for 15-minute data. So the time now is 32 minutes, 44 seconds. So we're about 13 minutes away from our next scan. Under our water level, we can see what our water level currently is. If we don't want to wait till the next scan to have an update, we can always come over and press the Measure Now button and get a fresh reading on our water level. You see the measurement in progress activate. The button over here grays out while it's in the measurement process. It opens up again. It goes white again, indicating the measurement is complete. The measurement completes indication comes up and we have a new value. Also notice the pencil here, meaning we can set the stage. The option here is to be able to enter in the stage value that we desire. So from a staff gauge or a wire weight, we can take the reading right off of the reference gauge, enter that into the stage value, and it will automatically calculate an offset for us. I enter in 10. The system will go through and make a new measurement. Look at the value that it's getting. Look at the value that I want and generate an offset that will allow me to get my 10.00. There we go. I can also edit the offset directly. Now once I edit the offset and it's in there, the old value won't be updated until a scan comes around or until I measure now. There we go. On our rain, we see the rain value that we currently have. Also notice that we can edit that value. So if we are installing a new gauge and we know that there's already been so much rain at the site, we can always come in and put in whatever the current value was. So 1.23. All these other options under the rain gauge are for verifying the calibration. Normally a process is to feed X amount of water down the rain gauge that represents X number of tips. So 943 milliliters of water often represents 115 to 118 tips. So if I was to come in here and say I want to put down water that's going to be right close to 115 tips, I'd put in 1.15 because of my scaling of the 0.01 per tip. At that point I can come up and tell it to start the calibration. You'll see the calibration check will go from false to true. At this time, as I'm starting to feed water down the rain gauge, the accumulator up here will no longer increment, but this accumulator down here will start incrementing. That way, if a measurement comes through while it's in this calibration check, it won't add data to your normal accumulator. So the actual real value will be recorded and not the value based on some simulated rain. Now notice the timer is down to 14 minutes 30 seconds before this test times out. So if the test is going to be shorter than 15 minutes, I'm good to go. If the test is going to take longer than 15 minutes, I may need to extend this. Now once I start feeding rain into or simulated rain into the rain gauge, this counter here will start counting up. So notice that my clock is already decremented to almost 14 minutes. So now as I start feeding rain down, you'll notice that cal check rainfall will start to increment, and the one up top does not. And also notice down below the air check, or the percentage of air, is going to go down from 100% down, and it approaches 0. If the amount of rain that's coming into it exceeds that 1.15 inches, then that air is going to start climbing again. You can watch those values, click down. Also notice at the top, the rain accumulation value is staying right at that 1.23. Again, so that if a measurement process comes through while we're in this test, we're not having artificial data in our rain gauge data. Okay, now if you notice here, I've put too much rain into it and my air went over. Now this test will time out in 12 minutes. I can also come in here and turn it off. Once the rain gauge simulation test is complete, I can come to the Data Monitor tab, add a display, add a table monitor, come to Rainfall Simulated History, and I'll see the results of that calibration process. If there are more than one calibration results, I can come in to add a grid and tell it how far back to go and see multiple results of the rain gauge simulation. I can also come in and collect the data and tell it to do the rainfall simulation history and say all data, and I could collect that, and I would have a hard copy on my hard drive of the calibration results. Come back to the dashboard. There's our logger voltage, and there's some simple information regarding the status of our GOES radio. In this case, I do not have the GOES radio actually transmitting, so our loaded battery voltage will be 0, and we won't have any results from the transmissions, but it will give us the time to the next transmission and so forth.